Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of the 1988 horror classic, Child's Play. This is a film that I hadn't seen in a long time. In fact, this is the first Child's Play movie I ever saw, at least parts of it, was Child's Play 3, and I'll talk about that when I review the movie. I think I saw this like once or twice before this most recent viewing, and I think the first time I saw it was on DVD, on VHS. I don't think I saw it on DVD at first. And when this DVD came out in 2008, this is the first time fans were able to watch the film in widescreen. Surprisingly enough, because when MGM originally released this, they released it in full screen for some dumbass reason. But anyway, I'll talk more about this DVD a little bit later. But let's actually get to the review, shall we? I'm going to change up my style of reviewing with this one and going forward. Nothing too drastic. I just don't want to talk about the synopsis anymore. That just takes up way too much time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys a rundown of who the director is, cast and crew, and then talk about what I liked about the movie, what I didn't, and then give my final thoughts on the movie, and maybe, sprinkle in a few bits of trivia now and then as well. Now, Child's Play is a 1988 movie, and it's a movie that you actually was kind of a hard sell because it's a killer doll movie. I mean, it's surprising how well this film works because it takes itself fairly seriously. And that actually makes it stand out, but in a good way. Now, this is a film directed by Tom Holland, who apparently it seems like maybe he was chosen, but I don't really doesn't seem like he was like the first choice. But he really liked the script by Don Mancini. But Don Mancini's script but he actually felt that the script also could have used a lot more. Like the script was by itself not strong enough. So he helped rewrite it along with another writer. And I think Don Mancini holds a little bit of. It seems like he holds a little bit of a grudge for Tom when it comes to how much he changed his original idea for the film. And to be honest, his original idea for the movie was not really the best to begin with. So Don Mancini at this point was a very young and up-and-coming screenwriter, and apparently the producer David Kirshner, who had worked alongside, I think he was a pretty big catch, so to speak, for MGM, and so they got him. And the first project that he saw, because he was like, I wanted to do Child's Play. And this is a guy who helped produce An American Tail. So this is a complete shift in terms of what type of genre of filmmaking he was choosing to produce and these films he was choosing to make. And the original title for this script that Don Mancini wrote was Batteries Not Included. But of course you couldn't use that because, that's a Spielberg movie. And apparently the script was floating around since like 1985, and it didn't really get bought by David Kirshner until 1987 or 88. And around that time, the title was then changed to Blood Buddy, which is a reference to the My Buddy dolls that were pretty popular around the time. And Don Mancini and a few others have said that Chucky himself was inspired by the My Buddy dolls, as well as the Cabbage Patch Kids. I think it's more closely related to My Buddy, because My Buddy's very similar to the Good Guy doll, and apparently because of this film's success and its mark on pop culture, well, the My Buddy doll did not survive a post-Child's Play world, because the My Buddy doll became very not a popular item. It became very undesirable, so to speak. So, and I could see why. I thought those kind of dolls were creepy anyway. So, and then to be honest, when Chucky is just his normal good guy doll, with these weird dolly, glassy blue eyes, it's honestly a little bit creepier than he is when he's, getting more and more human over the course of the film. Now, Don Mancini's script, and what I meant by Tom Holland not really being the first choice, Joseph Rubin was originally on the list to direct the film. So I think he was on a short list to direct the movie, and they wanted to go with him. He's a director of films like Dreamscape and so on. And apparently, I guess it just didn't work out. So they went with Tom Holland, which is a great choice. I mean, Tom Holland had previously done Fright Night, which is an excellent film in its own right. So the first draft of the script by Don Mancini was completed in the summer of 1985, like I was saying. It referenced Chucky as Buddy, like my buddy, who came to life after mixing blood with Andy and killed those against Andy, babysitter, teacher, and manifesting Andy's loneliness and isolation from an overworked mother and an absent father. In addition to be more psychologically driven horror film, Buddy also only came alive at night when Andy was asleep. Don Mancini also had this weird idea, too, that the doll would bleed, which is kind of thrown in as a kind of gag in Child's Play 2. It was actually a little bit more effective there. And his idea was this doll would bleed if you cut it, and you'd have to use a Band-Aid in order to... It just didn't make any sense. And apparently that's how Chucky came to life, is because it mixed blood with Andy. I don't like that idea, and I hate the idea of it being just some example of Andy's id. We've done that way too many times in movies. I'm really glad that Child's Play, Tom Holland and other writers decided, no, we're not going to make this about Andy's id. We're not going to drag the audience on for way too long to make them think that it's all in Andy's head and he's crazy. We might do that a little bit. We're not going to drag that on way too long, though. I did not want it to be like Michael Caine's and Oliver Stone's The Hand, where it's not really a hand. It's just that's killing people. It's just some manifestation of Michael Caine's character's id. So I was like, yeah, I'm glad they didn't go that route, because first off, Don, David Cronenberg beat you to it in a film called The Brood. So anyway, original writer Don Mancini also stated in an interview that the script toyed with the audience a little bit longer, like I said, making them wonder if Andy was the killer rather than Chucky. I'm glad they didn't do that, because later on, a film called Pinocchio's Revenge by Kevin Tenney would do that, and that wasn't very effective, and that's not a very good movie. So I'm glad they didn't go that route. I'm glad they were just like, no, this is a killer doll. This is a doll that's possessed by the spirit of a serial killer. That's what it is. And it's not, the kid's not crazy, and it's not just a kid killing people. And no, that's not what it is. And also, according to Don Mancini, the original idea for Chucky was that he was not possessed by the soul of a cold-blooded killer, but was part of Andy's rage. Like I said, like his id, which is something that was used in The Brood. And this idea, though, was kind of used later in the sequel. But I didn't really see it as Chucky going after the people that were Andy's enemies. I just saw it as Chucky just killing people. I didn't see that as him killing his enemies. I just saw that him as just a body count, really. So apparently, Don Mancini and John Lafia were barred from the set after threatening to sue John Lafia, I think, to sue Tom Holland over a writing credit dispute. That's unfortunate. John Lafia would go on to actually direct Child's Play 2, and so that might be a little bit why Don has a little bit of a grudge for Tom. Howard Franklin contributed to the screenplay, and he actually remains uncredited in the final film. And John Lithgow was actually rumored at one point to be considered and play the voice of Chucky, but they eventually went with Brad Dourif. But that's not until after he actually got fired from the job, technically, where he still played the killer, Charles Lee Ray, in his human form, but they had Jessica Walter, who had played the stalker and played Misty for Me, a film of Clint Eastwood, and she had actually recorded lines as a voice of Chucky, but her audio was unused because, according to Don Mancini, it made Chucky sound like he was gay. But, I mean, it's just hard to imagine Chucky being voiced by anyone else other than Brad Dourif, but apparently they didn't really plan on having Brad Dourif voice Chucky, or they didn't like the direction he took it in or something. So when he got hired again, he ended up going with his first initial idea of what he felt like Chucky should sound like, and that eventually is what they went with for the movie. Now, yeah, John LaFia and Don Mancini and Tom Holland all worked on the screenplay. I don't know who wrote what, but I think that, I'll talk more about the screenplay later, but let's just say I think they worked well together despite the fact that they were seemingly at odds with one another. And featured a score by Joe Renzetti, and it's hard to believe that the same composer would go on to do the score for Poltergeist 3 the same year, and it's a really shitty, forgettable score. But this score is really memorable, it's very atmospheric, and in particular, I really, really like the score that was used in the opening credits and in the end credits. It's a very eerie theme, and it actually works really well with the film. Now, it also features cinematography by Bill Butler, and I thought there were certain shots in this film that were actually really, really well done for a horror movie. For a film with only like a $9 million budget, which isn't that much when you think about it. And in particular, the way he shot the apartment building, the inside of the apartment complex, the scene when the babysitter gets knocked out the window, scenes in the snow, the shots while Andy was riding on the train. These were all really effective, really well shot sequences. There was a lot of great cinematography in this film, which I think is a bit overlooked. It's definitely one of the most cinematic looking uh, killer doll movies out there. Dolls also is really cinematic looking as well, but it's just it definitely feels like it's a big deal. It doesn't feel like a TV movie. It doesn't look like a TV film. It doesn't look like a low budget film. It looks like a big budget production. And the editing I thought was really tight as well. Apparently, this film was originally 2 to 3 hours long. The work print of the movie was over 2 hours long. Other sources mentioned the original cut was 2.5, near 3 hours long, which is a long ass movie. So the editors came in along with Tom Holland and whittled the film down, and they really did a good job editing it, considering that they had to edit that much out of the movie to cut it down to 87 minutes. The editors were Edward Warshikla and Roy E. Peterson. And then you have the cast. Of course, you have Brad Dourif as Charles Lee Ray, slash the voice of Chucky. And Brad Dourif was casted because Tom Holland was a huge, he was a big fan of his, and he actually had him as one of the main villains. I think he was the villain. He was the bad guy. He was in Fatal Beauty, one of the film I think Tom did before he did Child's Play. Fatal Beauty is a very underrated action buddy cop kind of comedy with Whoopi Goldberg and Sam Elliott. And I thought that was a great film. I thought Brad was great in that. And apparently Tom really liked Brad, and he really wanted him for the movie, and he thought he was the perfect choice to play Charles Lee Ray. And he was right. Uh, Alex Vincent was casted as Andy Barclay. Alex Vincent is, I thought he was a very, very phenomenal child actor. His emotions were real and believable, and apparently he got the role when he did the audition. He was trying to say the line in the movie where he's talking to Catherine Hicks about talking to his mom about what Chucky said. And of course, the line of dialogue has the word bitch in it. And he felt very uncomfortable saying this line. The line in particular is, I'm just gonna find this line real quick. Um, See, he said it's this scene where he's like, Chucky says Aunt Maggie was a bitch and she got what she deserved. And of course his mom's like, Andy, how could you say something so horrible? I didn't say it. Chucky did. And apparently Alex Vincent didn't want to say the word. So there were multiple run-throughs of this scene and this dialogue, and he keeps stopping whenever he's supposed to say the word bitch, and he's just like, I don't want to say it. I forgot it. He's like, I forgot the line. What is it again? And apparently he was so convincing to the producers and to the director about that he forgot this line. That's why he got the part, because later he was like, no, I didn't forget the line. I just didn't feel comfortable saying that word. And the producers just they thought, if he can convince us, that he forgot the lines, then he's a good actor and you're hired. So, yeah, and Alex Vincent was also one of those kid actors who was able to separate fiction from reality and was really a great worker on the set. Worked really well with the Chucky puppets and things like that, and the sequences that were supposed to be really scary, and he was a trooper, and it definitely does show in the movie itself. Now, you also have Catherine Hicks, who plays Karen Barclay, who's Andy's mother. And apparently, Catherine Hicks originally didn't think this was going to be a horror movie. Like, she thought it was more of a family movie about family, about a hardworking mom and her trying to support her kid, and there's some detective thriller thing plot going on. But then she later found out, of course, it is a horror film. But it was kind of it was destined to be that was in this movie because she met her husband on the set of this film. Her husband, Kevin Jagger, who of course is the guy who's responsible for bringing Chucky to life. So I always thought that was interesting. I did not know that. I did not know that she was married to Kevin, let alone met him on the set of Child's Play. You also have Chris Sarandon, who plays Detective Mike Norris. Chris Sarandon, of course, was in a film that Tom Holland also directed called Fright Night. And apparently, Chris Sarandon took this role because it's a great script. Not because it's a horror film, because it's a great script. And that's why he took the role of the vampire in Fright Night, because it was just a great script. That's how he is. He'll take a role as long as it's a good script. Doesn't matter what genre it is. Dinah Manoff plays Maggie Peterson, Karen's best friend, and the woman who babysits Andy and gets knocked out the window by Chucky. She ends up becoming the first victim of Chucky's rampage, so to speak. Tommy Swerdlow plays Jack Santos, Nora's partner. Jack Colvin plays Dr. Ardmore, the head doctor of a mental hospital. Jack Colvin is a guy who's been in. This is the guy who was probably most well remembered for being the skeptic guy from The Incredible Hulk. Like, he was the guy who was. Most well known for playing the tabloid reporter Jack McGee. So it was kind of fun to see him in a different role. In fact, it's kind of unrecognizable until I looked it up on Wikipedia. I'm like, oh, it's that guy. It's the guy. I knew I remember seeing him before, and then when I looked it up just now, that's where I remember seeing him in. He was in the Incredible Hulk TV series, Lou Ferrigno. He was the tabloid reporter guy who was just always on Bruce's case of David's case. You also have Raymond Oliver, who plays John Bishop, Dr. Death, Chucky's voodoo mentor. Neil Guntoli is Eddie Caputo, Chucky's former partner in crime. He doesn't have a line of dialogue. He's just there. And that's pretty much it for the cast. I mean, there's a few other people like Alan Wilder as Walter Criswell, Karen and Maggie's boss, which honestly was. I'll talk about him later. Aaron Osborne as the orderly, and Juan Ramirez as the peddler. So that's your cast. It's honestly a pretty. There's not a big cast in this film, and but they all do their jobs well, respectively. There's a few people that I'm not really that impressed with, and I feel are kind of unnecessary characters. I'll talk about them later. But now I want to talk a little bit more about some more bits of trivia about some of the casting. Like I said earlier, John Lithgow was rumored to play Chucky, but they went with Brad Dourif. I don't know. I mean, I like John Lithgow. I love John Lithgow. I think he's great in Raising Cain. I love him in Buckaroo Banzai. I just don't see him as Charles Lee Ray, as Chucky. I don't see that working. And what's kind of ironic about John Lithgow being considered for the voice of a killer doll is that he was in a very memorable episode of Amazing Stories where he was dealing with this phobia of dolls. I think it's Amazing Stories. It could be the 80s Twilight Zone, but I know it's one of those two. And I thought he was really good in it. And it was a pretty creepy episode as well. And I don't think it was an X-Files episode. I don't think that's it. I know it was one of those like 80s anthologies, like anthology TV shows. So, and Robert Hy Gorman also auditioned for the role of Andy Barclay. And Robert Hy Gorman you might recognize because he was in, I think he was in Mr. Nanny, and he was also, and he was the kid who said, "Fuck you, Lucky Charms," and Leprechaun. So he would go on to star in a horror film later in his career with another diminutive horror character, but it would not be as iconic as Chucky or as Child's Play. It'd be in a pretty lesser franchise than Leprechaun. That was kind of interesting, though, that he auditioned for the role. And also, the film, there's a bunch of deleted scenes, because, like I said earlier, the movie was over 2 hours long, the work print, maybe close to 3 hours. And some of the scenes that were deleted or cut down were an original opening in which Mike is dressed in women's clothing in order to catch Charles Lee Ray. And apparently, if you catch the normal opening scene closely, you can see that Mike throws a dress on the ground when he chases Ray down the street. Sequence where you have Andy celebrating his birthday with Chucky, Andy falling into a ditch in front of Eddie Caputo's hideout as it explodes, Chucky's witch doctor friend, John, performing a ritual dressed in voodoo priest clothes, Andy becoming a friend with a young girl during his time in the mental hospital. Later, Chucky tricks the same girl to help him out to find Andy. This girl is in the movie. There's a scene where Chris Sarandon's character Mike talks to her, trying to see about where did she see a doll, and did she see Andy, and she gives him she answers the question, says yeah, I did, I saw Andy, and so she's in the film. More footage of Chucky stalking Andy at the mental hospital. And the DVD commentary also mentions an alternate ending in which Mike is the one that kills Chucky by decapitating him with a baseball bat. The deleted scenes in Child's Play are gone forever, apparently, because director Tom Holland says the scenes were in his script. He shot them, but they were deleted as he cut the movie. I don't know if they are on the Blu-ray or not. I don't think so. Seems like it was stuff that was left on the cutting room floor. And probably because MGM has a pretty, let's just say they don't have a good relationship with the movie, because they disowned the film later because there was some other company that bought the rights to Child's Play or helped produce it, and they did not like the subject matter of the movie, so Universal ended up buying the rights to the sequel. I'll talk a little bit more about that when I review Child's Play 2, but also during the initial release of the movie, there was a crowd of protesters that formed around the entrance to MGM, calling for a ban on the movie, kind of like what happened with Silent Night, Deadly Night. They claimed that it would incite violence in children, much like Silent Night, Deadly Night, which is about an evil, a Santa Claus serial killer. And local news reporters were broadcasting live from the scene, and producer David Kirshner was watching, disturbed by what he saw. Jeffrey Hilton, who worked with Kirshner at MGM, said he would defuse the situation in 10 minutes. So Hilton went down, he spoke to the ringleader, and then the group disbanded, much to the chagrin of the newscasters. Hilton never specified whether it was threats or diplomacy that saved the day. I'd wonder what, I really would like to know which one it was, because that's kind of crazy. I mean, that's just your fucking politically correct parents and shit. I mean, it's rated R. It's not for kids anyway. Your kids aren't supposed to be going to the theater to see Child's Play to begin with. So what's your problem? Seriously. They're probably the same. They're probably much like the old lady in the film who's like, ugly doll. And Chucky's like, fuck you. That's probably, that's probably that old lady and her friends protesting the movie. That doll told me to fuck off. So we should ban this movie because it has that ugly doll in it. And apparently also the films have actually been accused of inspiring violence in children, which is probably why the protest started, because there was a case, an actual real-life crime case, that was linked to the series, and there was a gang in Manchester who was kidnapping and murdering a 16-year-old girl. And while they tortured her, they forced her to listen to recordings of the gang leader repeating the catchphrase, "I'm Chucky, wanna play?" And director Tom Holland has always defended the first film from these accusations, stating that the viewers of horror movies could only be influenced by their content if they were unbalanced to begin with. I could not say it better myself. Bravo, Tom. Really. It's not the horror film's fault. Whenever this kind of stuff happens, it's never the movie's fault. Everything's up to interpretation, and if you are a demented person with a demented mind, you're going to interpret things dementedly, and you're going to twist things to your demented ways and to your demented mind. So I don't really see how Child's Play, the movie, is responsible for any of these tragic events, this tragic death of this 16-year-old girl. Just because they're quoting Child's Play does not mean that Child's Play is directly responsible for this girl's death. The person who is responsible for her death is the gang members, the gang leader who tortured, and the gang members who tortured and killed this poor girl. So now let's get to talking about a little bit more positive things, and let's talk about what I like about the film. There's a lot of things I like about Child's Play. For one, I do think Tom Holland did a bang-up job directing the movie. He's a great director to begin with. I mean, he did a really awesome job directing Fright Night. He did a good job directing Fatal Beauty. He goes in and does an equally good job, a great job directing Child's Play. This is a guy who definitely knows how to set up his shots well. I love the sequences where he shows it from the point of view of Chucky. I think those are really great tracking shots. He does a great job shooting the effects, shooting the scenes with Chucky, shrouding him in darkness as much as he can, kind of hiding Chucky until he finally reveals him later. So there's less Chucky, but the scenes with Chucky are more effective because you're not seeing this rubber doll walking around all the time. So he built the suspense really well in the film, and I think, yeah, I don't have any problems with this direction. The screenplay, for the most part, I thought, like I said, Tom and Don and John worked well together, and they all added their different elements to the movie. I know Don wanted the film to be more of a satire of toys and things like that, and consumerism. And I'm glad they didn't go that route. That isn't necessarily what the film needed. And he originally planned the mother, played by Catherine Hicks, Karen, to be the one who runs this Good Guys Corporation, or the advertising exec. And I'm glad they didn't go with that. I'm glad she's just a straightforward single mom trying to take care of her kid the best she could. That made her relatable and likable. And but yeah, the script has some nice moments, some memorable lines of dialogue. Of course, the scene in the elevator where the old lady's like, "Ugly doll, fuck you." So it had some nice moments of levity. It wasn't perfect. There's a couple moments I'll talk about a little bit later that I thought were not really the best. Um, but for the most part, it's a great script. Uh, Memorable lines, like of course the whole thing where, "Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?" And the scene when the climactic sequence when or actually there's this sequence, of course, when Karen is trying to get Chucky to talk to her. She's like, "Talk to me. Come on, talk. I said talk to me, damn it. All right, I'll make you talk." And she grabs Chucky, lights up her fireplace and holds Chucky near the fire, and then Chucky comes to life. It's a really great effect by Kevin Yagher. That's another thing that I really like about the film. Kevin Yagher's effects, makeup, practical effects. You got to remember, folks, that around the time of Child's Play, animatronics were in their infancy. This wasn't something that was used that much in movies. And Child's Play really used them extensively. And Rick Baker himself nominated Kevin Yagher for this movie because he felt that Kevin was the new guy. He was the next guy, the up and coming star. And he was right. Kevin knocked it out of the park here with some really complex uh, series of effects. So this is something that had never been done before, and that had to be done perfectly. You could not fix things with CGI later. And even Kevin himself says, I stayed up, for months working on this movie, working on Chucky, working on the puppet. I didn't even sleep. And the hard work paid off because it's a great effect. It still holds up really well to this day, if you ask me. And it's a bit stiff at times, but they did a great job using the puppet as well as using stunt doubles, using little people in costume, or in one case, Alex Vincent's sister in one scene as these stunt doubles, as these doubles for these certain sequences. They had the little person actor dressed up as Chucky walk around in a set that's extremely huge, a really large set, in order to to create these really great shots of Chucky walking around in the apartment. And that's really ingenious. That shows you how clever Tom Holland is as a director. This is the kind of thinking out of the box stuff that a lot of directors nowadays are not able to do because they're so used to be able to use the green screen. I miss that. I really do miss directors and filmmakers and producers and just films, period, and thinking out of the box instead of thinking strictly inside of it and just using CGI and the green screen as a crutch. So, and actually, one of the stunt doubles, the one that actually gets lit on fire when Chucky gets lit on fire, before I talk about that, I just mentioned the line that in that scene, which actually I'll go back to the whole scene, of course, when Chucky wakes up. But anyway, I just wanted to just talk about Kevin Yagher's effects because they really are they're top of the line, really great, ahead of their time, and I can't believe he didn't get nominated for a single Oscar for them in 1988. He got robbed. So anyway, when Chucky first wakes up, of course, it's just a spew of profanities and anger. She's all like, "I said, talk to me, damn it, or else I'm going to throw you in the fire." It's like, "You stupid bitch! You filthy son! I'll teach you to fuck with me!" It's just crazy. And then he attacks her and bites her in the arm. Great scene. And then, of course, she gets freaked out and drops him on the ground, and he gets underneath the couch. And then she looks underneath the couch like she's looking underneath the bed and plays around with it. And then, of course, it comes back to life and keeps fucking with her again. Yeah, that's a really great scene in the movie. And Catherine Hicks, she mentions how she was able to get scared for that scene because she wasn't really scared of dolls. So what she did is she tricked herself into believing that there was a snake underneath the couch because she's terrified of snakes. And it worked because it really did appear that she was scared shitless of this doll. And going back to the whole the scene when Chucky gets lit on fire, this climactic sequence. There's a great. I love this line where, of course, Andy is getting ready to light up the fireplace and burn Chucky, and Chucky's like, "No, Andy, no, we're friends till the end. Remember?" And I love how the film has the kid say the one-liner. He's like, "This is the end, friend," and then drops the match. And of course, Chucky's like, "Ah!" It gets lit on fire. Well, the there's actually a stunt double in a Chucky suit, and that stunt double who got lit on fire, uh, which it was a safe burn too. It wasn't. It was he was in a fire suit. Was Ed Gale, who was one of he was the main actor who was in the duck suit in Howard the Duck. So that was pretty cool. So he was really well. He was most known for Howard the Duck, but you know he was also known for being in Child's Play, and he even mentions Child's Play, Chucky, in some of the interviews on the Howard the Duck Blu-ray and DVD. So I thought that was just really I had to mention that because I thought that was pretty crazy. That it was also Ed Gale was Howard the Duck. He was also Chucky, two of my favorite characters. So that was pretty cool. So anyway, yeah, the script has some great lines of dialogue. It's serious in tone, but not too serious to the point where it seems like it's laughable. So it's serious enough that it adds some actual genuine tension to these proceedings and to this ridiculous concept. So yeah, great script, great directing, great effects, good performances by the cast. I mean, Brad Dourif is great as Charles Lee Ray, very creepy, you definitely do believe him as some kind of killer. And then he was equally great as the voice of Chucky. Um, Alex Vincent was really, like I said, he was a really great child actor. I really liked his performance in this film. Catherine Hicks is great as well as Andy's mother, Karen. She showed a lot of moments where she was believably afraid and scared, not only for her own safety, but for the safety of her child. I really did buy that they were actually mother and son. They had really great chemistry with one another. Chris Sarandon, I liked his performance in this, but his character seemed a bit stock. Dinah Manoff was good as Maggie Peterson. I thought she was a cute, witty character, and I really did feel pretty sad when she got killed. Um, Jack Colvin was good as Dr. Ardmore. So it's a good, solid cast. Raymond Oliver as John Bishop, Dr. Death, the voodoo priest guy. So, so you got great effects, you got great direction, you got a good solid cast with good performances. The score by Joe Renzetti is got a lot of atmosphere. It's well composed. So yeah, I mentioned the editing and cinematography earlier. Those are things that I definitely liked about the movie as well. And for the most part, I did like the story. There were some elements of it that I could have done without, but for the most part, it's really strong. So yeah, for the most part, most of the film is just great. But most of the film is just a lot of good things to say about it. So when it comes to things I didn't like about it, there's not much, but there's a little bit. I thought it was a tad bit too slow paced. Like it takes a while to get going. Chucky doesn't really do anything or start talking until the 45-minute mark. I think they could have made that happen a bit earlier. Also, I felt it could have used a bit more gore to give it a little bit more of an edge. It's bloody, but there isn't really a lot of gore, and it's not really that ingenious in terms of its kills. It doesn't have that high of a body count. So you have a nice opening sequence with in the toy store where Charles Lee Ray is getting chased down by Chris Sarandon. Mike Norris is chasing down the serial killer, and then of course he transfers his soul into this good guy doll, and the toy store explodes. But there's just kind of a little bit of a lag between sequences with Chucky, and then you have this sort of stuff where the kills themselves. I mean, it was a nice shot sequence when the babysitter gets knocked out the window, and but I can't really think of a really memorable great kill in the movie. You have, I guess, the most memorable kill to me is when the psychiatrist gets killed with the shock treatment, so he gets deadly shock treatment. But the other ones, I mean, they're just there. I mean, I thought later films in the franchise had much memorable kills. I mean, Caputo gets blown up because he shoots at the oven while the gas is running. It's a great explosion, but it's not really that memorable of a kill. His Chucky's voodoo mentor gets killed by a voodoo doll that he inexplicably keeps in his own house, and it's a voodoo doll of himself. I don't know what was up with that. That was kind of lame. Then you had the scene, and in that same scene, there was another thing I didn't like about the movie. Just kind of a bad choice of dialogue there, where Chucky's all like, I got a date with a 6-year-old boy, and you've got a date with death. You're just like, a 6-year-old boy? That makes the Chucky sound like a pedophile. It's not a very, that's a poor choice of words there by the writers. But yeah, there's just not a lot of kills that are that memorable. It could have been better in that department. It's kind of anticlimactic with its climax, anticlimactic because they kill Chucky like 3 times. Chucky gets lit on fire, then he comes back to life, and then Catherine Hicks blows his limbs off and shoots his head off, and then his torso goes after the cops, Mike's partner, and then they finally shoot him in the chest. It was just a kind of anticlimactic in terms of the ending because it's like a false climax, false finish. It's like a false finisher in wrestling each and every time. It's like, oh, he's dead. No, he's not. Oh, he's down for the count. No, he isn't. Oh, they hit his finisher and he's getting kicks out. It was kind of, yeah, it was anticlimactic. I would rather just have it end when when Catherine Hicks blows Chucky to pieces. That's just my personal opinion. I also have to say, Tommy Swerdlow's character, Jack Santos, completely useless, unnecessary. Don't need him. Should have been cut out of the film. But those are the few things that I didn't really like about the movie, and they just bring down the film just a little bit. Because overall, if I was going to rate the movie out of 5 stars, I would give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. It's a very excellent film. It's a classic film. It's considered a horror classic for a reason. It's a great movie. There's only just a few little nitpicky things that I have when it comes to my issues with it, and they don't affect the film that much at all. Just a half a star. So yeah, I don't know what to say except thank you for watching my review of Child's Play, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And oh, maybe I could talk about the DVD, but maybe I'll just talk about that later. Maybe when I get the Blu-ray from Scream Factory, then I'll talk about the features, because the same features are going to be on that Blu-ray. So I'll save that for when that Blu-ray comes out. But anyway, when I get the Blu-ray, not when it comes out. But anyway, thank you for watching my review, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, I will see you guys later. See ya.